All right, it's time for a Pod Bible podcast, and I'm joined today by Kemah Bob, who is not only a fantastic podcast co-host, has not only been an amazing guest on loads of podcasts that I've listened to and that we've recommended in Pod Bible, but also is the host of their very own live show, podcast, hybrid type thing. Hello, Kemah. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm good. Thanks for, such a nice intro. It's weird to like over the past however many years, I've done, I've guested on so many podcasts and like co-hosted and whatnot. And, it's really like, I don't know if people have been like, but are you going to do one? And I've been like, no, not yet. Wait a second. Hold on. Just because there's so many podcasts out there, and I really didn't want to contribute like a shit one to the pile of shit ones. But I think this is a good one. I know this is a good one, and I'm really excited to be making it.
Cool.
I know I had a little self-doubt moment. I was like, I think, and then I was like, no, actually.
Commit to it.
I mean,
it's impressive that you didn't start one during lockdown, because that's when a lot of comedians and other people who weren't as busy jumped on and started making a podcast. But this is kind of the opposite of that, right? Because a lot of people were doing recording in their bedrooms or at home because they had nothing else to do. Yours is recorded out and about. Tell us all about it. What is it? What's it about?
Yeah. Okay, so the long name is the Femmes of Color Comedy Club. That's the name of like the night that I've been running since 2018. Took a pause during the pandemic. Took a pause to like feed my own self. Because, like, this is, like, my baby. And I was like, oh, God, I'm feeding my baby so much. What about me? Fed me a bit. And then I was like, okay, but my baby is more than just, for me, it's about a community. It's about comedians of color that aren't cis men coming together to work together, to get to know each other, to support each other. But also it's about nourishing an audience that's a bit hungry, of people that don't often get to hear from comedians of color who aren't cis men, who don't often go out to see live comedy, who may not think that live comedy is for them.
Yeah.
So what we do on the podcast is we have comedians come up, do some stand-up, and then after we do some stand-up, we have a little sit-down. Everyone comes back on stage. We have some chat, and I'd like to say, well, like the chat is like very structured or something, but generally it's just it's a mix between things that are really funny, things that are really kind of beautiful and moving. So we'll have like comics come on and we'll talk about like the fact that they were just on a super yacht, but turns out everyone can afford a super yacht because there's actually a super yacht hotel. But then we'll have some other comics come on who have been doing comedy for like over 15 years, and they'll share their experience as like some of the first like women of color in the industry. So it's a kind of beautiful wide range.
Yeah, love it. Okay, so how did it come about? Like, obviously you were running the night and you were having these beautiful experiences and you thought you want more people to hear this, or did somebody come to you and say, we should turn this into a pod?
Basically, well, people had been saying that for a little minute, but it was mostly like, there are a lot of like podcast production houses and a lot of companies that make these things, but it was important to me that when we did make it into something beyond the live night, that it would be with people who actually care about shit and then just want to like financially capitalize off of it, because I'm very much about like maintaining the heart, soul, and integrity of the space as we like share it, as we broadcast it, but also in who we work with. So basically, I've been thinking about it for a while, and I was like, oh, I want people from like my community to experience what the Guilty Feminist audience has been able to experience, and that's a podcast that I co-host quite a bit in a space that I really enjoy. And basically what's happened there is there are all these people who have been like, oh, I want to hear comedy, I want to hear like different perspectives, but I don't know where to find them. And the Guilty Feminist has been like, you can find a lot of them here. Not all of them, but a good amount of people we're very happy to like share with you and introduce you to. And I was like, I want that for like my performers. I want to be able to bridge that gap between people that like want and need this kind of content, and people that maybe haven't found the spaces, whether in person or otherwise, where they can hear voices like these and share these like incredible people with them. And so I hit up the Guilty Feminist family and I was like, hey, like, I want to turn my night into a podcast. You guys obviously know what you're doing. Like, would you be down? And they were like, yeah, baby, let's come up with some plans. So yeah, that's basically how it came to be.
I like it. So it's part of, is it the House of the Guilty Feminists? Is that right? Is that sort of their, where they're nurturing new shows?
That's their thingy. That's their shebang.
Yeah,
that's
whatever it is. It's, I mean, it sounds great. House of the Guilty Feminists sounds good already.
Well, they have like another show which is doing really well called Media Storm, and it's like these two journalists who investigate stories and topics, but by talking to the people that are actually involved. So if they're going to talk about or explore sex work, then they're going to talk to sex workers. And I think it's just like brilliant. So I'm glad to be like under their like tutelage, because I was just like, if I make something, especially after all these years of like guesting and co-hosting and whatnot, I was like, if I make something, it better not be shit. I won't have it. So I'm glad to get like some guidance from them, and to also be able to like open the arms of the thing, because like what I also love about the Guilty Feminist is like you don't have to be in the UK to experience it. And like, you know, my night, the live night, we put it on in London, but like I have people in America that would like to support, and in other parts of the country who may not ever be able to, you know, fly over or even afford a ticket. But yeah, so I'm just really glad to be able to like open the arms of the FOC It Up family and to be able to invite more people in.
Yeah, that's great. So obviously with the Guilty Feminists, you know, their live shows are pretty legendary and always popular, and you've been involved in a lot of those, and recording live podcasts always adds a little bit of energy and that you don't necessarily get. And have you considered making it, you know, what is it about the live environment or the live experience that made you want to record that and put that out as a pod? And had you considered doing it just people sat around a table in someone's flat?
I think there are beautiful things about both, and I am considering doing some episodes where it is people sat around talking about specific things, but what I wanted to do was to share comedy as well. So I didn't want it to just be people talking about how they feel about things, which, you know, is valuable, but I feel like there's a lot of it. But you can't really do stand-up at a table to 1, 2, 3 other people. You need an audience for that. And I think also, I actually weirdly recorded something during the pandemic. It was for a series called, I think it was called Edinburgh Unlocked, that was produced by Penguin. And they basically had myself and I think 20 other comics go into a recording studio and record like these 20-minute sets to silence. It was a really fascinating exercise, but not really anything that I'd wish upon anyone. So in order to share these comedians doing what they do best, you need to get them in front of people. But also, I think that conversation, when you have it privately, when you have it in studio, when you have it at home, you're able, I think, sometimes to go a little deeper than maybe you are if you're sat in front of a room full of people, and I think that's really valuable. But when you are in front of an audience full of people, you're able to like engage with them, you're able to pull them in, and you're able to say, oh, none of us actually have the facts on this. Does anybody here know what this is? Or how do you guys feel about that in real time? And I think that's a beautiful thing. And I think what it creates as you're at home listening, is you feel a part of that group, and you're like, "Ooh, I'm glad somebody out there said it because I was thinking that." Or do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I
think
that's true.
I think it helps you to feel a bit like surrounded and a bit held by more than just the people that are holding the mics in the moment.
Yeah. Particularly when you're hearing the atmosphere as well, because a lot of these venues are now set up to record these kind of shows, and obviously some of the venues that Guilty Feminists play, you know, beforehand it might have been, let's just get a dictaphone up on stage with us, and then the sound quality can be bad and you can't hear when somebody interacts from the audience. But I know a lot of work goes into making all that sound good.
Yeah.
And your podcast sounds great.
Thanks. I've been really lucky that so, you know, over the years I've gotten to know the sound recorders who do the Guilty Feminist, and they're the same people that come and mic up ours and stuff. And so
Perfect.
I just feel really good about that people will be able to feel like they're there, and hopefully at some point we'll be able to bring the show to them, or they'll be able to bring the show to us, you know, bring themselves to the show. Basically, like I want you to hear the space, feel the space, and go, oh, it'd be nice to be in that space.
Yeah. So what's the plan moving forward? Because I know we were going to chat a couple of weeks ago, and you still had one or two shows left to record. Are you at the end of a run? Have you got more coming up?
So we've got more coming, and I think for me as the producer of this thing and the creator of this thing, I'm just trying to figure out how to move forward in the most in the way that honors my energy, because I'm so tired. In addition to doing podcast stuff and work stuff, I'm also living a life.
Of course.
Have you heard of it? It's insane.
Yeah.
So I'm also doing that, and it's also interesting to think about over the first 12 episodes. We booked 36 different comedians, and a lot of spaces like to act like there aren't, you know, that many different comedians of color who aren't cis men that can put on a great show or whatever. So I think my objective was to show the kind of breadth and variety of the talent that we have. And moving forward, I'm okay, is that the best approach, to try to never have a great guest back? You know, so just thinking about how to go about that as well. But the plan is to have a nice chunky season going into the end of the year, and then maybe have a little break, because with it being live shows, there's also the demand to get people in. And I just want to be a fun host and a curator, but being an events producer and promoter, my gosh, I do not like that. So just trying to find the best way forward that honors what Fuck It Up is, and honors the onstage talent as well as the other folks. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, next time you put out some dates, then by all means, obviously we were speaking to people who were helping set this up, and I think we were going to try and help promote that last show. But when you've got new ones coming up, we can spread the word through Pod Bible.
Definitely, that'll be sick. And we'll be back in September and in October, and the Instagram is always buzzing with crap and information, but also sometimes funny, cute things. So
Perfect. All right. So people can go and listen to the episodes that are out there now.
Yeah.
And then they can get hyped, and then they can wait for those tickets to drop, and then they can come see, and they can get involved in the atmosphere, in their ears, and then hopefully in the flesh.
Yeah.
Sounds amazing.
And they're gonna tell their friends, you know, and be like, "Oh man, you know what I've been listening to." That kind of vibe.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what people do.
Cool.
They're always recommending. We just naturally, always.
Trust me. That's literally my life. Perfect. All right, Kemah. Well, thank you very much
for
explaining and telling us all about the pod. And you'll be back on future episodes to recommend other shows.
Yeah.
Even though it sounds like, you know, maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe you just want to focus on yours.
So tired of recommending. No, happy to.
Cool. Well, listeners can tune in on another episode to hear that. But thanks for your time today.
Yeah, of course.